The music, the costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own way, the Swedish supergroup is back.
What hidden thing could a 78-year-old music icon possibly still have to keep from the world after dominating it for so long? For decades, ABBA's Benny Andersson has dwelled in the bright glow of international success. But behind the glory, there were rumors, unseen realities, and questions that fans never ceased asking, especially concerning her. Now, finally, Andersson speaks out with a revelation that changes the way we understand him and the band's place in history forever. Prepare to learn about the truth you never saw coming. Her song was always playing. Benny Andersson revealed a part of his life unknown to everyone else at the age of 78. Fans have employed every lyric and every tune to discuss ABBA's shattered marriages for decades. But another chapter had been written in silence in his house, out of sight of the headlines. And it wasn't fame or fortune. It was the woman who kept him grounded when things turned black. That woman was Mona Norcliffe, and she was the love he discovered once everything had fallen apart. Mona disliked being on stage or in the limelight. Even though she worked in television, she didn't live close to the hell that was Benny's reality. She restored him to regular mornings, quiet dinners, and life where nobody was recording his every step. Benny once indicated that what she offered him could not be obtained at packed stadiums. Theirs was the love that was theirs and not anybody else's, and her strength was in silence. Fans never ceased speculating about who sparked which ABBA song, but the story told by Benny's later music was different. There were poems on Mona, second opportunities, and love that stood firm rather than disintegrating inside. Most people assumed he was still coping with ABBA's divorces, but those who understood him better knew what he was saying. His music introduced a new sense of peace and warmth that had not existed in the years of turmoil. He wasn't singing about losing a person anymore. He was singing about finding a person. This distinction was significant because it revealed a side of Benny that wasn't tainted by the scandal. The divorces influenced the way the media treated ABBA, but they didn't influence his heart forever. There was Mona that taught him that life is possible after a breakup. Love completed him, but his fame threatened to break him. The story was new to fans, yet it was the reason his music had endured this long. In his 78th year, Benny uttered the words, "Thank you." He told them that Mona had prevented him from quitting due to guilt. He would have remained trapped in the shadows of his past errors without her. Instead, he constructed his future not on the shattered remnants of ABBA, but on a solid home. She grounded him and kept him creating, not merely for others, but for himself as well. One thing that is usually overlooked about Benny's later music is how his solo songs differ from those he wrote with ABBA. The grand, epic songs were replaced with more mellow sounds that indicated both aging and serenity. He stated that serenity resulted from having her present. Those who listened to him might not have realized it, but his songs transitioned less about heartache and more about blending in. You can hear, in the spaces where the sounds used to be, how Mona has impacted the music. Since the confession of Benny at age 78, his legend had been altered. He was more than a pop genius who turned platinum songs out of shattered hearts. He was not going to let his errors pen his final verse. Instead, he proved that life can continue to play a gentler, richer song after everybody has finished singing. This is what Mona provided him with, a reason to endure with her. There is a powerful aspect of this story that defies the myth of fame. Famous people are generally considered to think only of how wonderful they were in the past. Benny proved them wrong by discussing the quiet love that gave his life significance beyond praise. Not having had hit songs was his greatest accomplishment. It was having found the one individual who did not look at him as an icon. She allowed him to live his life as Benny, not as the hero. Because he recounted it so late in life, this fact was all the more significant. At the age of 78, there was no need to sensationalize the past or tinker with people's memories. He was already being praised, attacked, and remembered for ABBA. He now chose to celebrate what had mattered most throughout. Because he was such a true person, It seemed like the greatest lyrics he'd ever written. From accordion keys to global stages. Benny Andersson was born in Stockholm in 1946, raised by a family that lived for music. Instead of letting him have the accordion as a toy, his grandfather and father taught him to play it. Other children were chasing games, but Benny chased notes, playing the same tunes repeatedly until they came automatically. He was shy and reserved, but with music he could say what he could not express in words. He learned how to speak for the first time using the accordion. As long as he could remember, Benny enjoyed a great variety of music. He listened carefully to Swedish pop songs, some pieces of classical music, and even the melodies of church hymns that stuck in his head. What set him apart was that he cared deeply about structure, how chords might alter how a person felt, and how a simple melody could remain in their head forever. Most teenagers were intrigued by the lyrics, but Benny was fascinated by the arrangements. He wasn't listening to music, he was taking it apart and reassembling it in his head. He was more than just a player because he was so fascinated by rhythm. In the early 1960s, Benny's talent brought him into Sweden's new rock scene. He was recruited by the Hep Stars, who were already famous in Sweden and popularly referred to as Sweden's Beatles. They became a chart topper and performed to screaming fans at their live shows. For Benny, it was the first bit of fame, and he enjoyed playing in front of so many. Although he was thrilled, he felt detached. The stage lights delighted the people, but he was more delighted in the background, playing a piano and assembling songs after all the people went home. This tension revealed something else about his character. Although most of his friends enjoyed being the center of attention, Benny was shy and embarrassed whenever he was famous. He discovered that traveling was dull, noisy, and exhausting, yet composing music brought him calm and vitality. He wasn't attempting to evade the attention, but he wasn't attempting to attain it either. He was aware that his skill lay in performing tricks that astounded folks, not so much. His gift was creating songs that would endure forever and other individuals could carry into the world. It was during this time that Björn Ulvaeus entered his life unexpectedly. Being part of folk group Hootenanny Singers, Björn enjoyed music that sounded like it had been put together with care rather than hurried onto the stage. They began writing together shortly after meeting. Their variations complemented each other. Benny was improvisational and melodic, but Björn was structured and careful. Together, they created songs that were both accurate and emotional. What had started as a means to collaborate soon became what seemed like destiny. Their collaboration was more than merely a time saver. It was a meeting of two artistic minds that assisted one another in developing. The songs were frequently penned by Björn, but Benny's melodies brought them to life. He had this incredible talent for creating songs that were instantly recognizable, but also new enough to be unique. They balanced with each other, resulting in something far greater than either could have achieved alone. Benny had finally discovered someone who could understand the same language he had grown up speaking. Björn. It wasn't English or Swedish, it was music. Mostly, Benny told that music was his true language and the only one that he could speak fluently. He was timid, so he didn't enjoy lengthy conversations or public performances. But whenever he played an instrument, the grip on him disappeared, and the voice spoke through rhythm and harmony took over. Every card contained things on it that he couldn't describe. This reality foreshadowed how he would reveal his authentic self, not through speeches, but through tunes everyone across the globe would listen to. While the world celebrated with ABBA's happiness, Benny silently endured storms fame and wealth could not shield him from. The woman who defined the music Agnetha Faltskog was the peaceful ray in the storm that ABBA represented. She had a voice when she was a kid that could be both soft and broken. She provided the band with its golden, melancholy sound. Her songs used to make me desire something, like a person who is attempting to reach for something that they can't quite have. That wasn't an error. Agnetha's strong emotions transferred into the songs. Many people felt as though she was singing their own stories. The second singer was Annie Fridlingstad, who was commonly known as Frida. Her voice sounded quite different from the rest. Frida was fiery, soulful, cutting, and full of vitality. Having grown up in the post-war years in a hard family made her tough. Whenever she spoke, that toughness was evident. Frida had the capability to make people get up, and Agnetha had the ability to make people cry. Together, they created the well-known ABBA sound. Not only did their harmonies blend, but they also bumped heads, creating sounds that no one else could possibly duplicate. Behind them stood Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson, who weren't just creating music, they were also experiencing what the songs were written about. The result was art built upon actual events that were occurring simultaneously. That's what was so fascinating about their music. It wasn't a slick dream, it was actually their own lives. It was as famous for ABBA's love lives as for their music. Nobody suspected anything of Bjorn and Agnetha being together, but Benny and Frida's relationship added a third dimension of drama. Golden, however, did not equal perfect. There were cracks in both marriages, and those cracks soon became the subject of their greatest songs. They didn't take cover behind bland lyrics. Instead, they drew on their own heartache to create pop anthems. Lots of people claim that The Winner Takes It All is Agnetha's finest work. Not only was she playing when she sang it, but it was written from the end of her marriage to Bjorn. The fans could sense how sorrowful it was, and that made it so easy to recall. Knowing Me, Knowing You was, however, concerning the bonds disintegrating in the band. These were not studio-made songs. They were assertions with music layered on top of them. Fans weren't crazy, Benny claimed after decades. Some realities were concealed in the lyrics of a great many ABBA songs. He confessed that melodies were more dependable to him than relationships, a subtle admission that music had endured every relationship. Music was Benny's closest friend, one who never disappointed and was always present. He created some of his finest work because he was so committed to sound. The pinnacle of ABBA was defined by this duality: love as inspiration and devastation. The ladies not only became role models, but also a channel for their own strength to run through. Agnetha endured her heartbreak with elegance, yet Frida battled it with flames. They battled their inner wars with their vocals as one, which was the war zone. Off the stage, that tension stung, but it was the songs that made the group superior to any other band in their era. Four voices that dominated the world when ABBA performed at Eurovision in Brighton, England, on April 6, 1974, their existence was never to be the same again. They sang Waterloo with glittery outfits and tons of energy. Not only did they win the competition, but they also revolutionized the rules of pop music. Benny's infectious arrangements and thumping piano chords took a bizarre Swedish entry and transformed it into a global sensation in 3 minutes. It proved that music could travel easily to people across the globe when the song topped the charts in London and Tokyo. It marked the beginning of a colossal trend no one, not even ABBA, anticipated.